It was when you go to college. Whatever the situation was, I would have to work it out somehow, but it was when I would go to college. It was expected.
When did you think that you wanted to be a teacher? When did that come about?
I didn't really want to be a teacher. I was part of,
How did it come about that you became a teacher?
well, I was a woman at a time when women didn't have a lot of choices. Being a teacher was one of the choices we had. We could be teachers, we could be nurses, we could be social workers or librarians. You couldn't be a lawyer because even if you made law school, which was very hard, you wouldn't get into a law firm. You couldn't be a doctor unless you were brilliant and knew somebody. So I was practical, and I became a teacher. I knew I could be a teacher, and I did that. But if I were doing it as the world is today, I probably would have never been a teacher.
Over how many years did you put together your notes, and when it finally took you to put together the manuscript, the document? Tell me about the book, how it came together.
You're not going to believe me, so I'll tell it to you anyway. I didn't have notes. I had a story inside me, and it needed to be told, and it was telling itself. When I decided to write it, something inside me told me. I wrote it, and then I reread it and made corrections in grammar and English and things like that, but I did not have an outline or anything of that sort. It just came out of me because it was poured into me, I poured it out.
Nice, I like that. Tell me about the family now. What has become of how many fingers? 10, 15, 20, 50, 80,
Hundreds.
200 fingers?
Hundreds.
Tell me about the fingers today.
They have every kind of profession you can imagine. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have business people. A man stood up in Congress prior to 1924, prior to that heinous immigration law, and he said, we have to close the door to these people. They can be of no service to the United States. Well, they only gave us our musical comedy and so many Nobel laureates and all of these people that I'm talking about. But in my family, no Nobel laureates, just doctors, lawyers. We don't have Indian chiefs. But we do have people who have done very, very well. And then humble teachers like myself.
Is there a moral that you can sum up? What's the moral to the story?
The moral? Yeah, there is a moral. All human beings are valuable. No human being is dispensable. Look close up and you'll find something. You'll find a diamond better than a diamond. Stop looking at what's different and getting scared. We're all so valuable to each other. That's the moral.
I like it. I'd like to take some pictures outside. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah. I didn't prepare for this. Am I doing all right?
You're doing perfect. This is exactly what we do. Yeah. Because I want you to be, see, from this, I show the TV people. That's how we go down to Channel 9 and Channel 19. And what I'll share with them is the actual, is you. I'll say, except I'll be able to show it on my phone, and they'll say,
And it'll work?
And we put it on the internet. I think the Holland, the advertising folks, are going to have a website dedicated to the book, to you. One place where people can go, and they'll see these videos, and they'll see some pictures. And that's kind of like the home base that we start pushing stuff out from.
Tell me honestly, do you feel we have a real good chance for something very successful?
Absolutely, I do. I know a good story when I see it. That's why I'm excited about this. I come across all kinds of different stories, all kinds of different people.
And this is a good story.
First time I've come across an Isabelle Stamler.
Well, yes, I know I'm different. I know I'm different. I've known that all my life. And I think I am different because I am the product of love. I never, so many people I know say how this was not given to them or that was denied them, or we had no money. But it didn't matter. I was loved. From the moment I can remember, I was more than accepted. I was loved and made to feel that I was important and good and fine and not anything but good. Nobody was better than I was. And I didn't believe them all the way. I knew they loved me. But I believed them enough that I went through life never feeling wanting. Maybe I should have felt wanting. Maybe I should have been more humble.
Before we leave, can you tell me the story again about skinning the horses? And pick up
Yeah,
the
that
battlefield?
was an incredible story. That one always stuck to me when I was a kid. My grandmother seemed like such an ordinary religious old Jewish woman. And my uncles and aunts and my mother seemed like typical immigrant people. And then came the story of skinning the horses. World War I had come to Russia, where they were. They were right on the Polish border, and it was a very war-prone place. Under the Nazis, everybody was annihilated. In any case, there was a battlefield nearby. The people hid. And when the smoke almost cleared, my grandmother and my uncle, who was a young teenager, got the wonderful idea that there must be things on that battlefield that were worth money. My grandmother wanted to come to America, and it was a terribly expensive thing that they had to do, and she didn't have the money. So she went with her, I think he was 13 or 14, her 13 or 14-year-old son, and she found dead horses on the battlefield, smoke, dead people. Some of them had not been cleared, and she found weapons. She skinned the horses with her son, and she picked up the weapons too, because she sold the skins and the weapons in Kiev, and she got a parcel full of money. That was a lot of her money towards coming to the United States. They understood that there would be things on that battlefield that they could sell. And
How did the family feel about bringing home the frothy leather with the,
well, it never came into the house.
okay.
They cleaned it outside. The family saw how dirty they were, but they were very realistic. They knew their situation. And they got cleaned up. There was water from the well.
Is it true that the European customs gentleman who needed to be bought off?
Absolutely.
Tell me that story.
I made up the conversation, but my grandmother had to, in Yiddish they say smear, had to smear a lot of people in order to get out. The Soviets had come in. She'd have had to smear people under the Tsar too. But the Soviets were very tough, and she smeared the people so that they could get the documents to get out of Russia.
Where do you think she learned her business skills? To be a trader, to be...
That came naturally to her. She was a very bright woman. She couldn't read or write because women weren't taught to read or write if they were poor. Boys were never illiterate because they had to read the Torah. They had to practice the religion. But poor girls did not get educated. My grandmother was a poor girl. In some unusual cases they did. Now when her children were being educated and she had a tutor coming in to tutor the boys, she put her girls in there too. She wanted them to read and write. My mother could read and write in several languages. But that was not done for her. And she was probably the smartest of the whole pack. Not that the others were dumb, but she was a very smart lady. And
Who was the love of her life?
her second husband,
Tell me about him.
he was very much younger than she. And she met him in Kiev, and he was educated, and he was very political, and it was at a time of revolution, and he was exciting. And they fell in love, and they had a child, and her teenage daughter could not face the embarrassment of her mother with this younger man. And she made a lot of trouble, including threatening suicide. And my grandmother took her seriously. She was afraid she would lose her daughter. She was very angry with her daughter, but she loved her, and she was afraid she'd lose her. She divorced this man that she dearly loved, sent him away. He didn't want to go away, but she sent him away because she felt for her daughter's good she had to do that. And then she sent her daughter and her oldest son to the United States, to her sister. So they were there before World War I. Anna and Harry.
That's right.
Herschel in Russia, but Harry in America. Anna had to take care of Harry. You weren't a child very long in their lives. By the time you were 10 or 11, you started to take on adult things.
And just kind of wrapping up things, tell me about